Selfless courage and against the odds survival. This is a story that has it all. This week marks a year since the Indonesian fishing boat, the Siev 36, exploded off Ashmore Reef, killing 5 Afghan asylum seekers. The sailors involved have never spoken publicly about what happened, even when they were accused of gross misconduct. That all changes tonight. Recently, I had the privilege of meeting the crews of the HMAS Childers and Albany. What they went through that day on the reef was life-changing.
Mass Solus, declare Mass Solus.
Mass Solus, Mass Solus, Mass Solus, all personnel stand to.
They are the words our sailors train for but dread. Mass Solus. Solus stands for Save Our Life at Sea. The crew scrambles, and within 90 seconds, a launching party is in the inflatable rib, ready for action. I've joined the crew of HMAS Childers for these exercises off Darwin, almost a year to the day after the words Mass Solus were used for real. It was April 16th last year when the suspected illegal entry vessel, Siev 36, exploded into flames off Ashmore Reef. The footage of this catastrophe went around the world. 5 Afghan asylum seekers were killed. The frightening pictures captured by the ship's security camera. The images are silent, and so too has been the ship's crew, unable to speak publicly until tonight.
What that footage does not convey was the sound. Just a phenomenal bang, and you felt the concussion hit you in the chest, and that really was a die-hard moment. Everything is happening very, very slowly.
When you looked in the water, what were you seeing?
Debris, bodies, smoke.
Was there ever a moment that you thought you might die?
I'd be lying to say if it didn't cross my mind when you get blown up on a boat.
You'll never forget this day, will you?
No. It lives with me every day.
And that would be hard.
Yeah, it can be challenging sometimes.
In the aftermath of the explosion, there were all sorts of stories and rumours about the callous and cruel behaviour of crew members from the patrol boats Albany and Childers, of refugees being kicked in the head and left to drown while the Navy saved its own. But once you hear the true story, you'll realise that this wasn't one of the darkest hours for the Australian Defence Force. It was one of their finest.
And the truth is a bloody amazing story, and one of which I'm very proud.
The story began on the day before the explosion, on April 15, when the patrol boat HMAS Albany intercepted 47 Afghan nationals and 2 Indonesian crew. The Albany was joined by another patrol boat, HMAS Childers. The orders were to hold the Siev 36 off Ashmore Reef until a much larger Navy vessel arrived to take the asylum seekers to Christmas Island. For 24 hours, things couldn't have been smoother. Commander of the Childers, Brett Westcott, will never forget the beautiful dawn on the 16th.
The weather, calmer than it is now. It was a perfect day. Your council swimming pool wouldn't be any flatter. And it was just one of those mornings you're glad to be at sea. Life was good.
Needless to say, you had no idea what lay ahead.
No idea whatsoever. Things can change pretty quickly in this job, and on that morning, they certainly did.
Things became volatile after the Afghans mistakenly believed they were being taken back to Indonesia. First, the Siev 36's engine was sabotaged. Next, Brett Westcott was alarmed by the smell of petrol fumes.
As soon as I took station here to support the boys, you could smell that fuel. And there's been a lot said about fuel on that boat. When you can smell it from 60 yards away and there's no wind, there's a lot of fuel.
It was clear the Afghans were trying to set fire to the boat, and things were getting desperate as 2 ADF personnel had to wrestle a lighter from a man on the bow. Commander Westcott dispatched another 4 personnel onto the Siev. One of them was Mac Keogh.
We were basically on board for about 90 seconds before it blew up.
90 seconds?
Yep.
What do you remember of that explosion?
A lot of colour, a lot of heat, yeah, a lot of debris flying past me. And then, yeah, bodies as well, and then a lot of screaming afterwards.
What had been a simple detention operation all of a sudden became an inferno, a mass rescue, and a scene of some extraordinary heroics. As the boat burned around him, Mac Keogh stayed aboard for 4 minutes trying to get everyone off. You made a decision to stay on. Why? I mean, that's courageous when you've got a boat burning around you. Why didn't you just jump in as well?
I had to make sure everyone was off. I made that decision.
What were you thinking of his actions?
I'm going, get off the boat, you fool. Yeah, we were trying to get them away from that. I didn't know, he didn't know, there wouldn't be a secondary explosion. The boat's exploded once, what else is there that's going to go up?
But the Afghans who hadn't been blown into the water refused to leave the boat. They couldn't swim and risked being burned to death. Paul Hetherington knew there was only one thing to do.
The boat was burning, but they wouldn't leave the Siev. They wouldn't swim away from it. Right then we knew that they were in trouble. So we just made the immediate decision to go and save them. We had to rescue them. These people wouldn't even let go of the boat to swim 1 metre to save their life.
He repeatedly drove his inflatable rib to the edge of the burning hulk to rescue 10 men off the back of the boat.
They were either going to burn to death or they were going to drown trying to swim away from the boat. They obviously couldn't swim, so we had to get in there and get them off.
But at the same time, Australian lives needed saving as well. Medic Sharon Jager was also on the Siev when it blew up. And how far were you blown off the boat?
From what I could visualise from being in the water, about 15 metres, I think I was blown backwards.
Sharon's life and death drama had only just started. Unable to inflate her life jacket, she now risked drowning under the weight of her equipment.
I can remember seeing a piece of wood and just thinking, go, you've just got to swim your heart out and get to this to stay afloat, because it doesn't matter how much adrenaline you've got and how strong a swimmer you think you are, in a circumstance like that, you just have to keep going, you've got to survive.
As she made her desperate scramble for the rescue boat, 2 Afghan men were grabbing hold of Sharon. In their own frantic bids to stay afloat, they were dragging her under.
The 3 of us were vying for the same position, and for me, the aim was for me to keep my head above water, because it didn't matter how hard I tried to pull myself into the boat. I couldn't do it, I just kept on falling in, and without medders coming and actually getting me, I know for a fact that the next time would have been me going under and not coming back up again.
Watching all of this was Sharon's good friend, Dr. Joe Darby.
And seeing the explosion and thinking that I'd lost her as a friend, and
And then she came back and she was your wingman.
She was. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah. I have so much respect for her, and she was a champion, absolute champion.
Good job. I got you.
Incredibly, once rescued, Sharon immediately went to work with Joe to save other lives.
How do you get over nearly drowning, blown off a boat, and then saying, what do I do? How can I help? How can I help these people? And that is so inspiring for me. And it was everyone else. It was Matty Keogh, it was Tom Dorr, all those guys, 7 of them, got off the boat. They didn't even care about their own injuries.
And it quickly became clear that they were now confronted with a major medical emergency. Second in command, Alfie Santos, was there to drag the first casualty onto the Childers.
As I went to pull him in, I grabbed him by the arms and So I pulled him up, he ended up back in the water, and I thought he had greasy arms. It was actually that his skin and flesh had come off in my hands.
And you kept going? You reached for him again?
We had to. They would have drowned otherwise.
And Alfie was dragging the first casualty out of the water, and he said to me, "Doc, how do I lift this patient out of the water? They've got no skin."
This space here is known as the quarterdeck, not much bigger than your average family lounge room. But on the day of the explosion, it was an emergency department. Imagine 31 seriously injured patients spread out across here. Some had broken limbs, but most had severe burns. Now, the ship was running critically low on medical supplies, and the problem was Darwin was more than 20 hours that way.
They were all very, very sick, and I was thinking we're going to get people dying. And I recall one time, about maybe 4 hours into this, I grabbed everyone together and we sort of met in the middle, and I said, "Look, just warning you guys, we're going to lose people. But there are going to be people that die."
You needed a miracle.
Needed a miracle. I think one was delivered.
It was delivered by the operations room at Northern Command, Darwin.
Yep, the position of front puffin, 12 degrees.
They discovered the oil tanker front puffin was just 90 minutes away from the patrol boats. From there, helicopters could land and fly the critically injured to Darwin. In the meantime, an Air Force Orion would drop life-saving medical supplies.
And I can remember having the last bag of fluid in my hand and going up and seeing the CEO of the boat and just saying to him, "This is it. We're now out of resources." And that's when he just said, "Look over the horizon."
We'll drop it, 2 miles ahead of bucket with the smoke, and we'll drop 3 or 4 boxes there. Okay, up, down.
That must have been an extraordinary feeling.
Tears.
What started out as a catastrophic event would end in an almost flawless rescue operation. An operation that saved the lives of all who survived the initial explosion, regardless of whether they were the men who caused this calamity or not. Do you feel any anger towards the Afghans for blowing up that boat?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it certainly didn't change the way that we did business in rescuing these people. It's not my position to judge any man, and certainly everyone else was the same. We got on, and there were people in need, and we helped them out.
All the Afghans have been granted protection visas, but the Northern Territory coroner has named 3 men suspected of sabotaging the boat. They may face charges.
G'day Joe, how are you? Thank you very much. Great to see you.
Oh, great to see you.
Wonderful. How's
How are you,
things?
Joe?
Hey man,
Hey, how are you?
Is there medals in this? Is there awards in this? For, you talk about stunning performances, bravery, valour.
Look, if I had my way, the Australian of the Year this year would be Dr. Joe Darby.
Good, thanks. And last.
Probably another 20 people would have passed away if it wasn't for her. And she made a hospital with that small lounge room space out there. Hats off to you, Joe.
Cut it out. Sorry.
On its next patrol, the crew of HMAS Albany laid wreaths at the site of the explosion. No one involved in the events of that day will ever forget the tragedy. But a year later, and life in the service goes on. Our patrol boats have intercepted nearly 100 vessels since Siev 36. Dr. Joe Darby is still tending the sick,
So how are you feeling?
while Sharon Jager is slowly but surely getting on top of the post-traumatic stress that came from her extraordinary day at sea.
It's a story about a bunch of heroes to me. People who saved my life, people who saved other people's lives. There's just so many people involved in it that everybody needs to be given a well done.
Well done.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.